journey of life. With every drop of water comes life. With every life comes memories. Each memory that is shared creates a legacy to be remembered. Etosha Gardens, your cemetery of choice.
Good day, viewers. My name is Rufu Rwakarongeka and welcome to another episode of Rufu Rwakarongeka, a show where we get to discuss more around death and being prepared for death. And today in the studio with me is Mr. Mende, the Managing Director of Etosha Gardens. Mr. Mende, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Good morning, and good morning, viewers.
So, Mr. Mende, issues around death are heavy ones to deal with all the time. And here on the show, we've talked about the idea of demystifying death. You find that a lot of people really don't want to talk about death. There's a lot of mystery around death. So, what are some of the mysteries around death, and why does it make it so heavy for community, for society to want to discuss about death? And does preparing for death make it any less of a burden?
It's a heavy load. I guess we must start by saying we are born, and because we are born, we will die. Sekuru vedu vakanga variko hakuchisina, vakaendepi vakafa. Sekuru vavo vakaendepi vakafa. So on that basis, death shall follow birth. It is our view at Etosha that we want to inculcate a culture in society where preparedness is part of the norm. No one will ever accept death. I think that we have to accept, including the person that is working in the morgue, in the mortuary. Akaudzwa kunziko mai vake vafa, baba vake vafa, he too will be emotionally challenged, or she will be emotionally challenged. So we can never completely eradicate the impact of the eventuality. But sadly, the truth and reality is that it is going to happen. So let us be as prepared as we possibly can to the best we can. At Etosha, we are wanting people to accept that they have accepted death because most people in their houses are holding a funeral policy in their shelf, in their drawer, in their file. That is a good beginning. So we are saying, can we go the extra mile? If you have accepted that you're going to die and you bought a funeral policy, it must follow then that he or she who is going to die must rest somewhere else. And where is that? Is it a grave? Is it cremation? What is it? Preparedness is critical. We don't want people falling over themselves when the news breaks. I have to salute those that came with funeral policies, because every time that I have been visited by death, be it in my own family or in other people's families, and I have been present, I have seen people receive death with a lot less of a burden than they did when I was growing up. Because as soon as it has happened, a few minutes later, people have settled and have accepted that the eventuality has hit them. They pick up a phone, they phone a parlor, and a parlor comes in, removes the body, and the rest follows. I'm just saying, let's complete the equation. Preparedness, preparedness, preparedness is a song we have to sing. So let us have a burial policy so that this person, once they have departed, their journey to their final resting place is completed. We are seeing some unacceptable developments where people have gone and deposited their loved ones in places I think they would not have wanted to. In a way, I don't believe they would have wanted to. The other day, I witnessed a body that came from abroad, they obviously flown in. But when I look at the resting place, I'm like, can somebody explain to me the rationale? Why then didn't they let the body be cremated wherever the body was, or buried there? Because where they have now left them, they've literally dumped them. So, so preparedness is critical, so that we know. And preparedness is a long chapter. We as a people believe in burying Kumusha. So someone who died in Cape Town, in East London, in New York, in London, is brought here and transported to Kumusha. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Let's just be prepared for it.
Yeah, quite interesting. So you emphasized the issue that we are born and the only thing that's guaranteed after that is that we're going to die. But no matter how much we know about that, it still remains something which is really heavy to accept, because nobody has figured a way to get out of life alive, unfortunately. But still, it remains a heavy issue. And you also talked about preparedness. And the question that I want to pose to you is that preparedness, does it only have to be financial preparedness in the case of securing either a parlor or a burial plan? Or it has to start with even mental preparedness, talking about these issues. For example, you highlighted the fact that sometimes people end up getting buried in places where if it had been their choice, perhaps they wouldn't have wanted to be buried. So doesn't the role then fall upon you who is currently alive to prepare in telling people that if it happens that I exit, I would want it to happen this way, before we get to the financial part, in just having a conversation around that to make sure that you plan it to go the way you would want if you had exited?
Nobody wants to die. Nobody accepts death. It's a difficult topic. We have seen people, upon the eventuality, discovering that their loved one had 3 funeral policies. And unfortunately, the law only allows 1 to kick in, which means they've invested in 2 policies which are down the drain. So, if only to save money, and given that we are buying funeral policies, we need to begin a discussion on how to deal with it. Because vana vatazvara who are buying the policies, murume oro mudzimai wangu ari kunditengera policy, should be saved the cost yekutenga policy yekuzonorasa. So if for no other reason, this debate has got to begin. Because we now all know kuti kwakutengwa ma-policies. So if we are buying policies, well, can we be open about it? I know that mwana can't approach baba kuti baba mune policy here, amai ndakutengera baba policy, baba ndakutengera my policy. It's taboo. It's almost as if you're wishing them dead. But the truth of the matter is, I'm just wanting to be prepared. And society, please, must make an effort to be prepared, to be organized, so that this difficult blow is not made any more difficult when the eventuality arrives. So the funeral policy, the burial policy, and what is going to happen when this arrives. Because this eventuality is going to happen. I would be crazy enough to go as far as to suggest that perhaps we should begin to discuss of funeral planners. Now, the youngsters out at home who are looking for business opportunities, I'm challenging you to go into the market and be funeral planners. Just like there is wedding planners. I don't know what you're going to do. Like they are going to door, vachitengesa maBhaibheri, vachitengesa zvavanotengesa. You must also start kuita door to door. Yamunonotengesa ngirikini funeral management, so that you manage this for people. Society can't accept nor deal with death, as we know. As a result, most deaths are messed up. But I have to salute some of our colleagues in the afterlife industry. I'm told I'm not allowed to salute them by name, but I'm sure some of them know themselves. Some of the things that we are seeing happening at the parlors have got to be commendable. People are getting there, and there is someone who is ready to ask, okay, hama yedu nematambudziko yashaya, mazopiwa here tsamba ku hospital yekuti komapedzerana navo ku hospital, because tsamba iyoyo muchiitora muenda nayo kwaMudzviti munogadzira nengirikini burial order, and mauya neburial order taradzika munhu wedu, tichakupai kapepa kamunoenda nako kwaMudzviti kutiko munopiwa death certificate ramunozoshandisa kugadzirisa zveupenyu hwemunhu. That is information that a lot of people don't know, obvious as it might sound. The other day we were talking to a family, and we were told, no, baba vakashaya, asi ana baba mudiki ndivo vakatiko vakuenda kubasa kunogadzirisa zvekubasa. Ana baba mudiki vanopinda papi?
Yeah, so I think this is a very interesting point that you have raised. But before we get to that point, to just summarize what you have said, what I'm getting is preparedness doesn't necessarily have to be financial preparedness, in as much as financial preparedness is very important. But it starts from a place where we ask each other, do you have a funeral policy? It doesn't necessarily mean I'm wishing death on you. I just want us to be prepared. Yeah, because if we don't solve that, then it becomes difficult to even introduce the whole idea of a funeral planner, as you mentioned it, because how is he going to start talking about the funeral when I am not even in a prepared state to talk about the funeral right now? So yes, preparedness is very important. But I also want to ask you in relation to the issue that you just raised. In that moment where the family has just lost their beloved one, is it necessary for the family to be going through all the busy work that you have to do, from taking the body from the spot of the incident to the parlors, to everywhere, until it gets to the grave? You talked about death certificate, all those things. Is it really something that the bereaved family should be taking care of, or perhaps these are a job that can be outsourced somewhere else to a company that can do that. What's your take on that?
It goes back to the point I presented to the youngsters at home, that an opportunity presents itself. They must exploit it. Everything requires expertise. Doesn't matter what it is. You know, Mai Kumba, a little girl that is walking down the road today who is 12, 3, 7, 15, anonzi kana aita pamiri ngaende anosununguka ari kuona vabereki vake, because vari kutiko amai vake vagomuratidza kutiko mwana anochengetwa sei. So everything requires expertise. So these are core functionalities that require focus. Like I said, in the earlier discussion, it is commendable what our colleagues in the industry have achieved. Let us continue on that trajectory and encourage society to be prepared and to bring in expert guidance and advice so that these jobs are done as neatly and as professionally as they possibly can. Because at the end of the day, we want the best for our dear departed. In South Africa, the departure of one is celebrated. If you look at funerals in South Africa, they dress up. I have no clue. You know, sometimes you look at these people and you're like, wow, where did you find the time to go and buy this special outfit that you're wearing? But they really dress up. And like we have seen, they bring in music. It's really a celebration. And why not? You know, you've lived with this person for so long. Why not celebrate them?
Yeah, I think we are going for a break, but it's an interesting issue that you have raised about other countries celebrating death. I don't know if celebrating is the right word, but the mood is a bit different from the mood that we currently witness locally. So we'll touch more about that soon after the break. And our viewers will take a short break and we'll be back.
Gardens is your cemetery of choice, situated 27 kilometers from Harare along Mutare Road, 1 kilometer south of Goromonzi turnoff in Rua. Etosha Memorial. We are hoping that this will be fully developed and ready for business in 2023. Although we have opened the crypt section, which is a section found in Etosha Memorial Park. Etosha Memorial Park offers crypts for burial of ashes. One slot in a crypt can accommodate at most 4 urns. Etosha offers space for current and future burials. We provide a clean, serene, and tranquil atmosphere for our dear departed and their families coming to visit. In Etosha Gardens, we have 5 sections operating: the Dam, Family, Infants, Muhacha, and Donodzo. All our graves are designed for multiple burials, what we call bunker burials, meaning that families can have at least 2 members share a plot, for example, a spouse and siblings. At Etosha, one can buy a block in the family or dam sections as families, friends, burial societies, churches, and corporates. These offer space for 4 or 10 double plots, but larger units can be made available by arrangement. To assist better planning and better preparedness, we are encouraging that people buy plots for future burial for cash or through our pay plan. The pay plan ranges from 1 to 20 years and is only available for future burials. For more details, visit our office at number 95 5 Avenue, Harare, or site office at Cemetery, 1 kilometer off Mutare Road, opposite Goromonzi turnoff. Or contact us on, remember, +263 773 783 953. Or Malvin, +263 712 588 186. Daddy 0771 710 958. Pauline 0771 710 950. Or call us on our landline 242 255 052 or 254 202. Or email sales@etoshagardens.co.zw. Etosha Gardens, your cemetery of choice. And Etosha Memorial Park. Hamaye Pejgo, isihlobo esiseduze.
A journey of life. With every drop of water comes life. With every life comes memories. Each memory that is shared creates a legacy to be remembered. Etosha Gardens, your cemetery of choice.
Welcome back, viewers, to this another episode of Rufu Rwakarongeka. And before the break, Mr. Mende, we're talking about the idea that other societies view the whole funeral process differently the way we do it. They do it in a more celebratory way. And I'm thinking to myself, why is that the case? Is it because of resource availability? It could be the case, and I'm picking your brain on that, because even in our local vernacular, we call it Namo. It's not a good time. And is it also because of having a look at the life that would have been lived by the deceased? Because in as much as we sort of like agree that there is no acceptable way of dying, for somebody who's lived their life to the fullest, they call it dying empty. Somebody who drops dead empty after having been achieved all the things they possibly could have achieved. Their death and funeral perhaps would be a little bit different from somebody who dies full of potential. So I want to get your understanding to why that happens, and just to pause that, could it be because of is the funeral a reflection of the life that would have been lived by the deceased?
I think a funeral is a reflection of the culture of the people that are conducting it, in my view. You have some celebrated characters that are driving down our roads who, upon their demise, their funeral is some heavy stuff. They go into all the traditional things that you can think of back in the village. You know, in a long way of answering your question, let me share with you, my upbringing. When I grew up, I remember as little boys, we used to run away from the homestead around the time they are moving the body to the
final resting place.
Because in my time, they buried people in Rukukwe. So all that was the body was wrapped in white fabric, and then the body was wrapped in Rukukwe, which is reed for Arungu. And then there was this, the pallbearers in those days would then carry this stretcher-like of wood. So the body would be placed on the stretcher and they would carry it on their shoulders to the cemetery. They would then lift the body and place the body in a grave. And in my days,
No coffin.
no coffin. Where did you get the money from? And in my days, they dug a grave as a hole, and then they had a tunnel on the side. I have no idea what the rationale was, except perhaps to think that somebody must have felt that if they placed the body in that tunnel, when they pound the hole with mavuva fushira, they will have, it's a neater way of doing it, because they then went and sealed that off and placed the body there. And I think those beginnings have a lot to do with the fear that comes with death. And this is how it was done. It was very heavy stuff. Now we have a different way. We dig a straight trench and the body is placed. Now you have fancy things, they brick inside, and then there is a slab to cover off. Now you've got coffins and caskets. It's getting better. And I guess we have now arrived at that point where we can now celebrate one's life. I guess in those days that I talk about, there was no celebrating. I don't know why they made it such a heavy affair. I can't speak for those times. I was only a little kid. But we are where we are now, and I think the opportunity we are given to spend life with an individual, whether they are our parents or our siblings or our friends, our children, must be celebrated. Because we want to leave a mark, a point at which we leave a beautiful image in our minds of this association we had. So I guess it's coming to Zimbabwe. We can't run away from it, although we're still a little distant, but I'm sure we're not very far off.
Okay. I have an opinion. I think the reason why our funeral process is done that way is because you are looking at the funeral from the point of we should be celebrating the life that has been lived by this person. But others are looking it from a way of what's going to happen after. Perhaps that person was the breadwinner. What's going to happen if we have a few cents that we have? Should we spend them splashing, or we should start thinking about life? Which then gets me to ask you the question. There's always a view of looking at death as the end. Can there not be any way of viewing it as the beginning of something else?
Well, death certainly is the beginning of a new journey for the departed, and certainly is a new beginning for the family that's left behind, because you have a void to fill. I remember this old auntie that told me how she was spoiled by her husband. Her late husband did everything for her. When he was gone, she just couldn't begin doing anything because she was spoiled. Everything had been done for her. So yeah, this is a beginning. And yes, we need to find...
And a heavy beginning.
And a heavy beginning, yes. And we need to find a way of dealing with that new beginning. I once went to a funeral. A friend died. The mourners were arriving. And my friend's wife's sister arrived. So his sister-in-law arrived. And I had the unfortunate or fortunate privilege of being within earshot. And sister says, "Sakanga in the police." whispering to her sisters, oh, she cried even more and even louder. It sounds like a joke, but it happens to be reality. So yeah, preparedness is critical, and I can't say enough about that. But also, with preparedness, we are lifting the burden. Can you imagine this friend who I talk about, when he passed, if there was a funeral policy and if there was a burial policy, and those two were carrying all the costs of the funeral, from the food to the
the grave,
undertaking and the grave and all that. At least that event would have been a celebration, because if it is things to do with school fees and whatever, they would have been things that they could worry about later. Which is why teachings was my funeral,
the differentiation.
Yes, because only a few days ago I was listening to a sad story. A guy did not come to bury his relative, and I shall not mention what relative it was. And we've since discovered that the reason he didn't come to bury his relative was because he didn't want the costs associated with it. So he's quite happy because we are next week because others will have dealt with the issues around the funeral. So yeah, preparedness, yes, and celebration, yes. These are the things that need to start working on, because society has got to be prepared for a different world. In this world today, there is artificial intelligence,
yes.
Where you talk to a machine and it tells you what's happening in your environment. Now, if that's where we are, for God's sake, why can't we do better for ourselves? So I think we can do better. As a people, speaking for my people, one of the things that has got to come on the table and come onto the table very fast is the issue of cremation. Now, I don't know if anybody can give me a good reason why a whole body is going into a grave. Yes, I'm talking myself out of business, but let me assure you that we are not in this business to celebrate people's demise. We are in this business because it's a necessity. But I'm saying, why are we, why do we have this fixation about burying the body? Why don't we begin a discussion and get to do what others are doing, which is cremation, which is a lot cleaner. I know it's painful and difficult, but I'm sure it's something that can be achieved. But these are some of the discussions on the table that I think have got to begin to circulate.
Yeah, I think you have invoked a thought in the viewers of this show, and I'm sure they will start thinking about cremation and talking to their loved ones about the whole idea of cremations. And to our viewers out there, we really appreciate if you can put some comments under this show about what you think about cremation. But back to what you were talking about, Mr. Mende, what I'm getting is lack of preparedness then robs us the opportunity to celebrate the life of someone. Because we are only crying our dear departed. It's the situation that's actually there. We now have to look for money to make sure that the whole funeral happens. So perhaps for us to get to a stage where we can celebrate somebody's funeral, it has to start with preparedness. But I was now going to talk about some of the sections that you have at Etosha Gardens, and perhaps you then add in all together. I know you have the infant section. What was the thinking behind not only the infant section, but just dividing and putting different sections to the whole Etosha Gardens?
Let me end your issue about partying and celebrating the dear departed. In West Africa, they have commercial whalers.
What's that?
Commercial whalers, there is women come crying at funerals, isn't it?
Yeah.
In West Africa, you hire people that cry for you. They come and you tell them a story. This man was John. He was like this, and he lived this life and whatever. And they come and they recite this man's life.
Oh.
So, they're at another level.
Yeah.
It's no longer about the aunties and the grannies and the family. It's being done at another level.
Wow.
The world has got different things that go on when it comes to celebration and dealing with grief and the departed. But back to the sections. Well, we spoke earlier in previous programs
episodes
about the origins of Etosha.
Etosha, yes, we did.
Which are basically a function of its relationship with its sister company, Shelter, where we realized that we were shelter people by accommodating the living, and we thought, well, it's an incomplete job without accommodating them in the afterlife, because there is a need for accommodation in the afterlife. So when we approached it, when we approached the topic, we asked ourselves a number of questions. The first one was, we are dealing with residents, and what kind of residents are we dealing with, and what approach? So we went on the drawing board, and we planned our cemetery, which we prefer calling an estate. And as we were planning our estate, we then said, well, we need order. And how do we have order? We cut roads, we mark graves, we number graves, and we identify each unit for purposes of record in the computer. And we thought, well, look, you go into other people's cemeteries, and you find a little grave for a baby, a big grave for an old man. We just thought it lacked order. Okay. And for that reason, we said, right, infants take smaller sections or smaller units, so let's have them where they are, and when you present them, they are presented in a neat and orderly manner. So that's how infants was created. And Muhacha was really based on the fact that the section we have Muhacha, it was identified by nature. We have Muhacha trees in that area. That is where that name came from. Donozo came from one of our staff who thought, well, this is about appeasing, isn't it? The spirit, the family. So tingavatonhodze sei, zvavaremera. So we said, we thought, okay, munhu kana anga achifamba rwendo akatakura mukwende wake, anosvika pasi pemuti paachada kunozorora, and that's where Donodzo came from.
Wow. I can see that there was a lot of thinking behind that in structuring the whole thing. But Mr. Mende, if I continue talking to you, we will spend the whole day here. To our viewers out there, I hope we have invoked some thought into you about especially the issue of cremation, and we hope that you have a discussion with your beloved ones. So the key word is preparedness. We hope you will be prepared for whatever comes. Until next episode, cheers.
With every drop of water comes life. With every life comes memories. Each memory that is shared creates a legacy to be remembered. Etosha Gardens, your cemetery of choice.